I'm just going to read the title. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our City Council Budget Workshop meeting. It is August the 18th, 2022. I will call this meeting to order. It is 10:03 p.m. a.m.
Yeah, I know, right?
See, I'm half asleep. I'm sorry. I couldn't sleep last night, but
Neither could I.
welcome, everyone. And then if we can have the record reflect that we do have a quorum and certify that, thank you. We will move on to our invocation, agenda item number 2, and Pledge of Allegiance. And if Mr. Chris, after the invocation, you can lead us the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Pastor Dr. John Rotra from our Cornerstone Baptist Church. Welcome and thank you for this.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, first I want to thank you for allowing us just to be here today. Although I'm used to doing this in a religious service, this is still a service that can be honoring you and glorifying you. You've given us this opportunity just to take today to serve, know you, and glorify you. Thank you for loving us. God, I cannot go a day without saying thank you for doing what you've done through your Son, Jesus. You look down upon us and see that we are sinners worthy and to earn nothing but wrath. Jesus, you shed your blood. You paid the price. You satisfied divine wrath and divine justice. And so all of us who put our faith in you and repent of our sins are saved. Thank you, Jesus, for doing that, because you're the only way, the only hope we have. You are the way, the truth, and life, and no one comes to the Father but through you. God, I ask you to be with the mayor and all the council members as they make decisions regarding the finances and the business of Alice. God, I know that not every decision is going to be the most popular or necessarily the most desired. God, I ask you to help each one of them to make decisions in your wisdom, with decisions that will honor you and do what is right, not what is expedient. That they will truly continue to serve the people of Alice and serve you, and not serve political agendas or personal agendas. For God, whether it's as a pastor or serving on the city council, we are servants. So help us to follow your wisdom. And that way you are glorified in all things. And God, I don't know if any of the council members or anybody else here knows you or has a relationship with you. God, if they don't, I ask that you would help them, bring them to you, give them that relationship. And if they do, help them grow in that relationship so that they can know you, they can show you, and they can share you. Thank you, God. Again, you are holy and righteous, and yet you still love us. Thank you. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Raise the flag, please.
Thank you.
Have a heart. I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge
to
to
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
And one thing I want to say is I work in politics, and I understand that it can be tough to make decisions, and I both respect and honor what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
What a beautiful prayer to begin our meeting. Indeed, indeed. We'll move on to public comments, and I don't have any citizen comments before me, so we'll move on to our city council members. If you have a public comment, Mrs. Bowen?
No, thank you. Just have a blessed day.
Mr. Burke?
No, thank you.
Mr. Molina?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Chris?
Not today, thank you.
Okay. Thank y'all. And as always, we thank all our citizens, all our businesses, and many blessings, and those reaching out and anyone coming into Alice, we welcome you. So thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, individual consideration. 4.1, review and discussion of the 2021 to 2022 fiscal year revised City of Alice budget and 2022 to 2023 fiscal year proposed City of Alice budget. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're going to go into the debt service fund today and the hotel occupancy tax, and then we're going to talk about some capital improvements.
Okay.
Okay, so with the debt service fund, we can start on page 160. The revenue that we show coming in right now is 1.3 million, and this is based on INS as if we brought in the exact same revenue as last year. We also have some transfers coming in from the solid waste utility fund, and the multi-use complex, it's 0, but it should be 96,894. The solid waste is transferring 335,000. That is an increase from the fiscal year 2022 budget, but this transfer does cover 100% of the solid waste's debt. The utility fund, we also increased that transfer from this year to $1,049,000, and that covers 74% of the utility fund's debt. The transfer from the multi-use complex, the 96,000, that one would be 37% of its debt. On the next page is a list of the expenses, which are your bond payments. And for the 2023 proposed, we have $2,779,000 for all bond payments. If you go to the next page, 162, it actually breaks out into a schedule to show all bonds and the payments for each of their each year. So it gives you, it shows you, every year their payment, and then when they're done being, when they're paid off. Okay. And the last column shows you your total for the year. On page 163, that kind of gives you a another little summary just on the interest rates, the date of issuance, and then the outstanding debt for those. And then the next few pages actually break it out for you into detail, and it'll show your annual payments, and then the next will show you a breakdown between the payments in February and August. So it gives you a lot of information there if you go through that. Is there any questions on the debt
Council.
service?
Mr. Chris?
Real quick, if you would go back to 160 for me. On the proposed budget, at the bottom there, revenue transfers, category 49. And I'm not sure if you missed it while I was looking at some other numbers, but the transfer from the sales tax debt service, there's zeros on both that one as well as the multi-use on the proposed budget.
Yes, the multi-use, I'll fix that one. I have it coming out on the multi-use fund, but it was not keyed in on this side, so it should be there. The transfer from sales tax, that was just a different fund, and it was for debt service, so we just kind of closed out that fund and just moved it to debt service.
Okay.
We're just trying to clean up for audit.
Mr. Bonilla?
No, I'm good.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chris, any other
No,
questions?
good. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chris? Mrs. Flo?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. The only question I had, I wanted to know, can you tell me, or where could I find, like, if any of these will be available for refunding, or when that comes? Call dates or?
I'm not sure, that might be with the financial advisor. I know that on some of them, there's so many years before they're callable, I believe that's what it's called. But I don't know the exact.
Is there a way you could get me just a list of that, just so that we can look at, okay. And then, the only other question I had, I just wanted, think on, or maybe it's under, let me double check over here.
And Aaron, also on your question, so in 16, a lot of these probably are not going to be closed because when they were callable at the time, and that's when the restructuring happened of the refunding on refinancing on some in 2016. And so they're probably going to be a few years before any of them can be acted on, but we'll get a list. And
I kind of want to just see that, especially knowing, just kind of being prepared. Thank you. I was going to ask something else, but I'll get that. Just like what they were for, each one of them, because I can't remember. Do you have that where you could?
Like to add it going forward?
No,
For
just-
each one?
Yeah, yeah, if I could just, I just want to kind of, when I compare. I think we have it somewhere.
We can make a note of it.
Okay.
That's no problem.
Oh, like what they went out for?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes, yes.
sorry, I didn't hear the beginning, sorry, okay.
We
I
got
was
it.
like,
We got it.
And I did have some things that I wanted to ask, but I'll wait till after we finish. There were just some things, just to recap on some of the things that just if we have already addressed it or not in reference to, just like a quick synopsis of what we've talked about. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
okay, on tab 8, we have the hotel occupancy tax fund. On page 178, I have the revenues. We just budgeted pretty much the same as fiscal year 2022 for the hotel tax revenue. We did increase the interest income just based on what we've been receiving. So we show 283,000 for the year in revenue. I'm sorry, 238,000 in revenue. Sorry. And then the next page, we do show one position, a social media public relations. On page 180, we have the expenses. We budgeted the same amount for advertisement, the same amount for the city-sponsored promotion of the arts. On the buildings and structures, we did budget 1.5 million. This was for signage for the entrances and then for some water tower.
the concrete water tower that we're trying to work on for the branding and advertising that we're looking at. So that's all included in that 1.5. We don't have a real tighter breakdown of it, but we included a number there to be able to work with. So the signage for the outlots, signage and, gateway signs, and also the concrete water tower that we're working on.
Council, any questions? Mr. Chris?
Where's the reserve fund balance on this?
That will be on page
We skipped over 75, right?
175, yes.
We're hitting 3.7 right now, and that's where that 1.5 is coming out of, so that people can understand what it's. 'Cause that's a big old chunk of money, 1.5 right now, but it's sitting there.
Yes.
Now, where is the budgeted for building structures and improvements is there, but, promotion of the arts, okay. The 25.5.
Yes.
Is that what we?
That's where we pull.
That's what's that?
That's where we pull whenever they come in for the festival.
When we sent out, I think we had 26 something on the front of that paper. So we're right around there. I think it was the percentage of what we were anticipating or what we had drawn in. So just, it's,
Here, you're close, it was 2690.
yeah, 26,983.50 is what we told. Now, that's not to say that we're gonna be giving it all out, but that's just what we did budget. So just, you know, drop in the bucket.
Okay.
It is a little bit different. Thank you.
Mr. Molina?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Burke? Mrs. Bowen?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
In regards to the water tower, you know, we're budgeting this, but we still anticipate everything coming back to us, right? Because it's gonna be big dollar amounts to begin with. Make sure, okay, all right.
Yeah, this is just allocation there to be able to pull from. But yeah, once we get an idea of what it's going to take and some ideas on what we plan to do, that we'll bring it back to you guys. I mean, you guys are ultimately going to make the decisions on what happens there and what doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to come back.
You know, one thing that I would like to, is, and it falls under the same category, is we have some big ball football events, and we do have baseball events coming through. And I don't know if it would come out of the same funds, but you know, when I say we have events, we have football tournaments in the city of Dallas that actually fill up our hotels. And when we plan for forthcoming events, like the golf course, like we've done in the past, I'd like to make sure that we have some money in here to try to for field preparedness. We had some staff sit with us through meetings, and if we can utilize these funds to make that happen, I'd like to make sure that ends up coming out of this fund as well. So that it doesn't hit the general fund, but we can get these fields up to par for events that we know happen and we know fill up the hotels.
Would we have to budget that ahead of time? 'Cause
I think
know
it would
that-
come out of the building structures and improvements as well.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
1.5 also.
Okay,
We're okay.
we're okay?
I think it's in that same spot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And I don't really anticipate it being large sums of money at this point, but we can always come back if we actually see an event worth hammering down on, so.
Okay.
Hey, one thing on the social media, public relations, what is that going to entail to come out of here? What does that entail?
The salary and
position.
wages? Yeah, that's one that we've had there, and part of that is what we use to transfer out on, for Eddie on his contract, for the stuff that he does on the social media. So we're not anticipating filling that position, we're utilizing that for part of his contract.
And this is more for the tourism and promotion of the, because I know they're real strict and specific on this. And as far as having funds come out for maintenance and that type of stuff, I don't believe that's a qualification for
You're talking about on the fields?
improvements, yeah. And, you know, I
Not
don't know.
maintenance.
Not the minute.
Not maintenance, preparedness,
It's
there's a
preparedness
difference.
to get it ready for
If it's an
events.
event, an actual event.
An actual event.
And we have to have the history, so as long as we have all that.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
definitely.
because there are the guidelines that we have to find, you know, y'all have been dealing with it, so I know.
Yeah, we've had to do a lot of reclasses from times, like, no, that's an operation thing, not
Yeah.
getting ready for an event, let's
Well,
move it over.
Thank y'all for that. And on the 1.5 million, I would love to see a breakdown of what that entails with the water tower and just when you get more information about
Yeah,
that,
well,
because,
you know, once this is approved, now we'll have some money that we can work with, and then we'll get a plan of action for all those different areas with a budget on all that and present that to you guys.
yeah, I think, only because our hotels they're hurting, so anything we do to promote and help that for tourism and stuff. Okay. All righty.
One thing I'd like to see also in the advertising, and I don't know, is the social media boosting outside of our area. It's at a very low cost, and we can promote things outside of our area too. Minimal dollars, and it can hit tons of people. Just focus on areas and try to bring people in that way too, through social media boosting. So, and it wouldn't exceed a large dollar amount that would push us into having to rebudget over the 30-something thousand that we already have in there. So,
And when you
I mean,
mentioned.
everybody's on Facebook. Let's utilize it.
Right, and when you mentioned Gateway, you're talking about the entrances. And remember I asked about the downtown entrance as well, if that can be something we can look into.
Part of that's going to be with the signage
Right,
that we have on here on those outlets. The directional signs
okay.
are in conjunction with that.
Do we have a sign that just says downtown? It's a text dot sign coming into downtown.
And I
I'm
know-
just thinking of,
No, and the downtown ambassadors, the group, they're actually, if I'm not mistaken, talking to Mike too, they're trying to find a place where they can put up some kind of a sign for themselves as well. So
Well, that's-
they're making an effort also in order to promote downtown, so, that might be something that we can utilize with this stuff too, so.
okay. It's just I've seen other towns that have like a really beautiful entrance, arch that says downtown Alice, whatever.
That'd be pretty.
But anyway. All right, well, thank you.
Under section 9, we have the capital improvement programs. We have a few. We'll start with the golf course improvement fund. On page 183, we have the summary. We show for proposed 2023 only receiving revenue of about $35,500. On page 184, it's a breakdown, it's just the capital improvement fee. This does include that increase that Jay had spoken of. 75 cents out of every dollar would go to this, so that's why you see a little bit of an increase here. We haven't budgeted any expenses for the golf course improvement fund yet.
Council, any questions?
No.
Mrs. Bowman?
No, thank you.
All right.
Next, we have the street improvement fund on page 187. This fund was mostly from transfers from the general fund. We didn't budget any transfers into this fund, so the only revenue you're going to see is $175, and that's just interest that it's earning. We didn't budget any expenses. We did have some expenses this year, so you will see that the fund balance did go down to $59,343.
Council, any questions, Mr. Chris?
It's one of those things where it's scary to look at something like this and say, our street improvement fund we're not budgeting in for it, but that doesn't mean that we're not doing work on the street.
Yes, that's true. This is,
Yeah.
this is more bigger projects type.
Yeah, this is just the statement that I like to make.
Sorry, yes.
When people see this, it's like, but no, we're still working on streets, we're still doing anything. Because that's a different, never mind. Okay.
And this year, you can see we did a project on Rose Drive and Main Street. So there was some projects done, and they did some paving and drainage with curb also on Kennedy Street
Mr. Molina?
Kennedy, Hobbs.
and Hub Street. Yes.
Hobbs,
Yeah.
Kennedy, Hobbs, Rose Drive, and thought that was here. Fesco, Kennedy Street.
And then with the grant monies that we've received, they're not capital improvement, but with the grant monies we've received, we're doing a lot of drainage work, we're doing a lot of sewer water lines, which in turn turns into street works. So there's a lot of work being done. We just can't necessarily put it in these funds and say that's dedicated for that.
Mr. Brown? Mrs. Bowen?
We're good.
Okay.
Okay, next, we have the Landfill Development Fund. On page 191, the revenue coming in, we show $305,000. That is from the $4 that most people see on their water bill. We have about $100 coming in from interest. We don't show any expenses this year, but that's because we'll be done with the Cell F, so you won't see any expenses for next year. We're just going to build back up that fund.
Council, any questions on this? Mr. Chris?
No, ma'am. I'm good.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mrs. Brown?
No, thank you.
Okay. think we've talked about it before.
Okay. The next fund we have is the Landfill Post-Closure Fund. So this one is, of course, to close the cells. On page 195, this is a summary. We have $8,400 from interest, and this year we're transferring $50,000 from the solid waste fund. This fund is also from transfers. There's no like other revenue like the landfill development fee. This is based solely on transfers in. So we show we're going to have $58,400 in revenue this year and no expenses. And we show the ending fund balance to end at $1,665,341.
Council, Mrs. Bell, any questions?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Burke? Mr. Chris?
You know, I'm not one to like to add fees to anybody, but they said we're 20 years out on something like this. If we were to add a quarter or to assess a quarter in a closure fee, I mean, I'm just food for thought, maybe not this cycle, because like I said, we're 20 years out. At 7,000 meters at a quarter, at 20 years, you're $1.8 million for 25 cents a month. So it's something to consider when moving forward on this item. 25 cents isn't a lot. I mean, it hits, right? But I mean, it isn't a lot per month, but it really does add up over the course of a 20-year closure plan. So just food for thought and consideration, and when we're talking about fees and stuff like that moving forward. So just want to make that statement. Thank you.
Mr. Esparza, can you, just for clarification, can you explain these two as far as post-closure and then how we, and the planning for the new cell and then post-closure, how does that work? Just to let it, just real quick.
So, I mean, the post-closure is something we've got to account for, you know, and Robert could probably talk about this a lot better. He's been dealing with it for a long time. But, you know, our cell has a life, and once we fill it up, we've got to make preparations for the closure of it, and that's something that's a permanent thing that it includes monitoring and those kind of things as well. So it's not just you finish it and you're done and you walk away. And so there's a cost to that, and it's a pretty big cost. And so for us, you know, we're planning on that, and we have a fund for that, but that's one of the things that we talked about on the audit that shows us as a deficit, because they have assigned a number based on what they found to be the post-closure cost of our landfill. But for us, you know, we've talked about the 20-year of keeping it open. You know, we have the valleys that we're thinking of doing a permanent amendment to be able to fill those spots. So what the true number is, it's kind of floating. It moves every year depending on what we need to do. But on the landfill development fund, of course, that's what we need to build the new cells and move forward with that. So not sure if I'm answering the questions you exactly had, but they're very different animals.
Well, just in case someone's listening to this, so they understand it, then, and I know that we're negative on that other one because we've had to account for it, but if I'm not mistaken, I think someone had mentioned that is the proper way to show it in the books. I'm not sure.
Well, that's what our auditor.
That's what the advice the auditor
That's-
did.
But
Yeah.
it's a cost that we know we're going to have. We just don't know when in the future it's going to be. The assigned cost is something that I believe they go to, the methodology is through TCEQ, determine the size of our landfill, the useful life, and what the number they put there. I believe they put an $8 million number right now is what they have on the post-closure. And so that's an expense that we're going to have in the future. We have a fund balance of $1.4 million or $2. That's going to show us in the negative because they assign that similar to how when you have an expense. For accounting purposes, I mean, it shows up there, similar kind of how it's going to be on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
And how accurate is it? I don't know, it makes it look bad on our part, you know,
Yeah.
but if they're assigning that all across the board, you know, I don't,
I think the main thing is just so that when someone does go and access our proposed budget, we kind of explain it a little bit. And it's mainly accounting purposes. We haven't expensed that dollar amount, but in the future, we will be.
yeah, but,
Expensive.
and so that's another thing where, you know, our idea, once we go through another audit, is to talk about that, and is there a different way to account for it, similar to how you do a sinking fund or depreciation, where it's accounted for year by year. Right now, if we're gonna have that in 20 years, and of course, you'll do the time value money to see what it's gonna cost for 20 years, and assign a yearly value, where are we right now? Are we in the plus or a minus? That may be a better way to do it, and even if they don't wanna do it, we should do it on our end and create that document separately and say, look, here's where we are. Because we need to be able to account for it properly also. So it's not just, you know, the auditor saying, hey, here it is, put a number, and now you're in a deficit. It's for us creating a sinking fund or creating a depreciation fund to be able to properly, you know, and maybe not allocate it, but have a separate sheet to be able to see where we are.
And I need to be clear, I need to clear something up, because when I read it, I thought, hey, that number doesn't add up in my head what added up on the calculator. It's not 1.8, my fingers are chubby and the numbers are small on the calculator. It's about $500,000 in 20 years, so, you know, we could.
That's why I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
no, because I was hitting this.
Let's actually go down to
The 1.8,
Start saving a quarter.
yeah, but no, I apologize for that, but, yeah, you have to say 7,000 quarters.
Yeah.
So, no, that
was
1.8 would
interest.
be closer to $1 if we did $1. So just, like I said, food for thought. But no, as soon as I read it, I'm like, hey, that math doesn't add up to what I had done before. So it's more like $500,000 over the course of that. So
Well,
just
and that's
food for
what, you know,
thought.
Still $500,000 we don't have.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
between us and finance, we've been talking about how, you know, how do we make sure that we have that properly funded? And right now, we kind of don't know, because they're assigning a dollar value, but we don't have we have an idea. We use a 20-year lifespan on that, you know, even though it's getting close to the end of its life, but we can continue filling it slowly. But we do want to have something, you know, to be able to explain that better. And, you know, by the time this audit comes around, we'll have those numbers to be able to show the auditor, here's what we really see it happening. The years, the cost, and then the assignment, you know, per year.
I'll definitely with Pete on that proposal. I think it's
Well,
it's a proactive thing.
And once we have, you know, kind of like the real time of where we are, then that'll help make a decision on, are we doing okay with how we're doing it, or do we need to add a quarter or
Yeah.
whatever we want to do yet?
Yeah.
Okay, no, look forward to getting that information back so we can figure something out.
Thank you.
The next capital improvement fund we have is what we call the Depreciation Fund, and it's basically capital equipment. And when we first delivered this to you, we did not have anything in here at all, but we do have a list from the departments on some requests that we can go over with.
Thank you, sir.
So we did receive several requests, but we did kind of break it out as to maybe a year that we can purchase these items, and some of them we just put to be determined, we're not sure yet, but for proposed 2023, we did recommend some items from the fire department, some nozzles, wildland hose, and active shooter response equipment. For the streets department, we did propose a chip spreader. The superintendent recommended we could buy it used for $125,000. And we also did propose for the golf course a Jacobson greens mower for $35,115. So we're proposing for 2023 a total of $187,283. On the next page, we have some items that we proposed for 2024, which would be for the fire department, some portable radios, mobile radios, and thermal imaging cameras. For the streets department, a pneumatic roller. And for the golf course, a Jacobson XD truckster. So for 2024, we're proposing $211,114. Now, the next page is everything else that the departments requested. The fire department, they're requesting some self-containing breathing apparatuses, a water rescue package, a SCBA fill station, 3 PPE gear extractor, 35 ready rack gear storage, wildland equipment package, and a mobile command vehicle. The Parks Department was requesting a boom, 2 tractors, and some playground equipment for Brazel, Craig, and 4th and 5th Street parks. The Streets Department was requesting a 1-ton flatbed truck and a water truck. The Codes Department was requesting 2 new trucks. The library was requesting an electronic sign and furniture for the sitting area. The landfill was requesting a scraper and an old tanker. The metering department was requesting a new pickup truck. Maintenance and construction was requesting a sewer trucker and trailer. Wastewater department was requesting a new dump truck. Special projects was requesting a belly dump truck tractor, a trailer, and a pad foot roller. And the golf course was requesting a Kubota with turf tires and some pumps. So that totaled $1,686,290.
So obviously, the total on the capital improvement request is something that, $1.6 million. Something that we certainly, can't do, but one of the things that we're doing, we're on planning for future capital improvements and also including this in this budget after you guys go through it and want to see what you like on there and if you want to add anything or subtract anything, is that we want to keep this in place and especially keep the to be determined, because this also helps us, in future years bringing something back and forth into here. Or if we're applying for a grant, we have a place to look right away on our needs, and it's somewhere we can point to. And so, the idea is our capital improvement program will get a lot better and more specific as we move on. But we're going to work on it throughout the year, and if we need to include something in there, we will, for the to be determined. But it's going to help keep us organized and on track. In some of the years when the economy just dropped, the capital improvement program just kind of went away. And even from not even putting anything on here, but what we want to start doing is including, even listing, even we're not going to fund it, but list it in the to be determined or for a later date, so we can know what we need to bring back and not forget about some of the things that we really do need.
I like that idea. Council, any questions?
I have one on the fire, Patrick, is the active shooter response equipment. Does that include the stop the bleed?
Yes, ma'am. What that kit is it's a package that we put together that would allow us to be able to effect our rescue task force responses. So the way it works is, if you saw I don't want to use Involved as an example, but there's a method and procedure to responding to those types of incidents, and so our firefighters are trained in that.
Right.
We've trained alongside the police department. Typically, your police department makes entry, and your paramedics and your EMTs and firefighters make entry alongside them,
Right.
and to be able to get in there and start working on patients and bring patients out. And, it's a really complex project or complex response, but in order to do that, you have to have the right equipment, and so that's all that equipment into one package. And the numbers that are on there, those are preliminary numbers.
Okay.
We anticipate it would come down a little bit because right now in our current budget, we're trying to figure out ways to fund some of that stuff with with our current budget, and in addition to that, we're also looking for grants. So if there's a way we can get funding from somewhere else to do that,
yes.
we're going to do that and not deplete all of our local funds.
Well, I know in the past we talked about the stop the bleed equipment to be used for training. That's different from this. I mean, this is
Sorry, say
going
that again? The
to
what?
the stop the bleed equipment for training.
So
strictly
that we
for
already
training.
have. The training equipment, you're talking about the
They're not dummies,
The
they're
kits,
mannequins.
yeah.
We don't call them dummies anymore.
And all the kids. Yeah.
They're mannequins.
Right.
Yeah, those, we already have those, and I think we've got some conversations that we're having with Rotary to try to help get some of that funding back here. So,
Okay, okay.
We were in a dire need to get that going and get that rolling, so
Right.
we were able to squeeze something out of our regular budget to get those, and so we've got to kind of get some of that back, so.
Okay,
That's
great.
where we're at, so, yeah.
Well, thank you.
The active shooter stuff is actual response equipment, not
The
training.
response equipment, that's what I was thinking, because I know you needed that, because you were using the hospitals maybe, or?
Yeah, we were
In
using,
the past?
the hospital in Corpus,
In
yeah.
Corpus, yeah. Their training equipment, so.
Great.
Well, thank you for staying on top of that, appreciate you.
Mr. Williams.
And just, I didn't see PD on here anywhere.
I was just gonna say that, I was like, so you don't need anything, chief? Well, you're not on the list. You didn't make the deadline, did you?
Well, I'll speak for him, right?
Okay.
No, some of the things I think that, we were talking about positions that they may need, but on the capital improvement side, they do have access to grants and things like that that he's actively working on. And I know the chief uses sometimes the forfeiture funds that he has access to for capital improvement. So there really wasn't anything on here on the capital improvement side. When we talked about some of the needs, there was maybe an additional officer, additional dispatch. Those are things that we talked about on the capital.
His fall under,
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
under department budgeting, not capital improvement.
And so and if I may, some of the things that we are asking for have also been placed into the Lone Star grant. So that's why also we're hoping that once we get that grant, if we get that grant, and I know we will, we'll get the equipment that we do need.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Again, I do like this idea, and it's neat, and it gives us kind of an idea of what some of the needs are and some of the things that we weren't able to consider this year. The one thing I wanted to ask Mr. Jose Pereira, if you could step up, just wanted to ask you, there's some items on here that I don't know if there's anything that maybe some of those companies that, I don't know, consultants or someone that would help us seek out grants.
One thing in particular, like the mobile command vehicle,
Right.
is a big dollar amount. That's something that, it's on here. We don't expect to fund it from capital improvement, but we want it on here because that's something that we've talked about, either acquiring it from a government through USDA, or there's a surplus that you've talked about also, so.
Yeah, and I've been working with both the chiefs, and we've been talking about different grant opportunities for that.
I'm also seeing quality of life items here too. What some of our citizens have requested, our parks, and I don't know if there's anything out there. Ms. Barbara, I know you work very hard with our infrastructure and have been real successful with, but I was just, if y'all know of any grants or anything.
We're having team meetings on parks, and then we're continuing to work with Jose on the PD and the fire department side. And as the police chief indicated, the command unit that's in the CIP, he also included it later in the Lone Star application. So it's now part of the Lone Star application. So once the state reviews that application and advises us of what we may be awarded, then we go from there.
And I saw that unit, one of the command, and it's nice. But I do also want to see if we can pursue something for our parks. I know.
We're having a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah.
Arlene and Yolanda, Jennifer, and me.
Yeah, and we're talking with different grant consultants. I can think of 4 or 5 that we've already reached out to, and they're all looking at different things for us as well. So, yeah, we're actively seeking things.
Oh, good.
We've got not only the regular city emergency management plan, but we have a multi-hazard plan that was adopted by the city and the county, and FEMA approved it back in November of 2018. Though that plan plus the regular city emergency management plan are required in order for the city to be eligible for FEMA funding. So again, we're reaching out to consultants to help us update that plan. And Jose's got an RFP that's going to be published that will help us procure consultants for all these different projects.
Make it clear though, that's not the only reason we're writing the plan. We actually want to be prepared.
Of
The
course.
plan's important to have, it's not just for grants.
Right, sure.
But it's an added.
Well, we have one in place, we're updating.
Right, and
Yes.
this
And
one will be updated.
Right.
Yeah, so the hazard mitigation plan that she's talking about, I think expires in, we have like 2 more years left on it, but we need to start planning it now.
To update it.
To update it and have it ready so that way.
And get it approved by FEMA.
And just so the public knows, you've been working very hard on that too with becoming electronic and with all the other departments, so.
Yes, we're going through a process right now to convert that over to a different system, so yeah, it's taking a little while. but we're getting
Good.
there.
Yeah,
Very
it was
close.
just, and there's so many things here, I wish we could, but if there's anything that are, the consultants or whatever, y'all come up. There was something, I know Texas Wildlife and Parks also has some sort of grants for parks.
So Texas Parks and Wildlife, they do have programs. The one downfall that I would say is they're 50% match, so, the city would have to fund the other 50%, but that's the only downfall. Well, the ones I think we had looked at.
Well, good.
And we've got the scoring criteria for the different Texas Parks and Wildlife grant programs. So we can look at the scoring criteria and then look at our needs for parks and see where we would fall in the scoring for the different grant
good.
programs.
Good.
So we'll be talking about that.
Well, thank you,
So we
I
can-
appreciate that.
And then we have a meeting with GrantWorks this afternoon too, so,
On
on the GLO and the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actively searching and
Definitely,
looking.
being proactive.
Another thing
Thank you.
to mention to you guys is, let's say, for example, the 2024, we're looking at about 80, almost $90,000. No, actually, let's just say that for round numbers, a $75,000 number for fire. So we find along the way a grant, which, they're more likely to get a grant than a parks is going to get a grant. Then we'll assign some money and we'll bring it back to you guys to reassign that money and allocate it to, playground equipment or something of that sort. Because it's a harder grant to get, is playground equipment. An easier grant is on the fire or police. And so,
Public safety, yeah.
Another thing real quick. Are you, once you're done, just let me know.
Yeah, I know I had seen, I thought we had, what was it? The pad foot roller, I thought we had addressed that a while back. Is that something we were leasing or
well, that's
the pad foot
roller. I know we talked about it.
Is that a street
project?
Yeah,
street?
streets.
The one we addressed was for the landfill.
Oh, okay. Well, I know, and then they have the scraper, and I know that's important for the landfill, so. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Speaking of
Yes,
the
sir.
scraper, we have 1.6, but we have 3 sets of items here that have no pricing or estimates. So, the dump truck, the scraper, and the tanker, well, the tanker's coming from the fire department.
Well,
so
it
that-
was just an idea, we don't know.
Yeah,
how to-
but if we had put a value to those, we're over 2 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just conceptually.
And there is, we
We're working
noticed,
on-
we're gonna update it.
Okay.
There's a couple items we missed.
Yeah, 'cause and the new trucks for codes, we're not looking for 1 tons, we're not looking for anything
No.
like that. We're talking about,
Colorado.
$35,000 to $40,000
Like
vehicles.
Patrick actually had some
Yeah, we're actually,
information on it.
we're actually for those, we're actually looking at some surplus vehicles that we can get from the state or federal surplus. So if there's a way, we don't want to, we've only got so much money to work with, right?
Right.
And so that money has to get spread across the entire city. So all the departments, we got to be friendly with each other and help each other out. So one of the things that we're willing to do is we're trying to see about maybe getting some of our current vehicles that are not functional for us, selling those and using that to try to flip into getting, and then on top of that, getting some used vehicles that are still good for us, that will serve our purpose, and shave down on that cost so that we don't have to deplete all of our funds. So we're trying to be as creative as possible, working with finance and the city manager. We'll do what we can to make that money stretch as far as we can.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
And I'll just say, I know our directors and finance and all our employees are very creative and have worked really hard in trying to make things work, and I appreciate it, because it's easy for us to just sit here and look at numbers, but you guys are the ones working out there and actually talking and trying to figure this out, so I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Any other questions or comments or anything, council? No? That's it then. You're done?
I'm done.
No more?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
I'm done.
Mr. Esparza, did you have anything else?
No,
to
right now,
mention?
we're going to be working through this, and there's some things that so 2 things. One is the increase in the insurance premium, because we were funding part of that through the Benefits Trust Fund. And Benefits Trust Fund, like they talked about before, it worked the way it's supposed to, where it was offsetting some of the premium that we were paying. And so we've had 2 kind of bad years, one really bad year, so exhausted that Benefits Trust Fund. At one time, I think we had up to $1.4 million. Now, when you think about that, that was money that was, if we were doing a regular, fully insured insurance program, that money would have been to the insurance company. Here, we were able to utilize that over 10 years and save that money. Now we're going to try to build that back up, and the way you do it is funding 100% of your the premium that is assigned to the maximum liability. And so this year we're going to have to do that. So that's a pretty big chunk that we're going to have to. We're changing it in here, but it's not as easy as just plugging in a premium. You've got to go department by department. So we talked this morning that Vanessa's almost done with the general fund, and then we got to go to the other funds assigning those costs. So that's something we're working through. So the numbers change, of course, and then the valuations did change. So valuations drop. If we work on the same income, the rate goes up a little bit, And Sydney, the appraisal district, sent a proposed a rate, but we have to have a conversation with him about the budget and any of these changes before we get a true estimate of a rate. So those are things that are there's a lot of things that happen. We have all this done, we go through it, but then we're doing this with the appraisal district back and forth and coming up with what a tax rate would be based on the changes that are made. So we'll have a brand new book with the changes that we've talked about, including these capital improvements, and we're going to work on until our next meeting.
Okay. And I just had a brief synopsis of some stuff, and forgive me if I repeat myself on some of these things, but I just wanted to make sure that we do address the organizational chart in reference to what I had spoke about, having the citizens, then mayor, council, and then so on.
Yes.
And then also, if we could be given something when you do have some of those changes, if there's any kind of financial impact or change by whatever language is in there, as far as a different type of description, okay? And again, just something, if the council can be given a brief, maybe just kind of how y'all did with the capital improvements, like in each department, if you see that a position was added or removed, or you're giving an increase, a pay increase, just that way it makes it a little bit easier and clearer. Of course, when you have changes, then you'll give us that later, but at the initial, if we can at least have that, because I think that makes it a little bit more clearer. I would love to see if maybe on the, you would read the transmittal letter at the beginning, before giving the proposed budget to council, only because that touches on a lot of what your goals are and some of the things you've negotiated, like with the 1% that was given to our that you proposed for our employees, and then just other little things. I was going to ask if On the airport manager position, I was wondering, instead of funding it, is there a way, because is it more of, are you anticipating filling that position for the airport manager, or is it just a part of wanting to save that space and have accountability? I don't.
Well, I mean, half of the airport's budget should get reimbursed from the county.
Right.
And so right now, we have a position there that's, and we're going to assign Barbara the airport manager position. And we'll assign appropriate, dollar amounts, but to be clear on that, on the funding, in a way that we shouldn't be, Gabriel and myself, Barbara spends a lot of time there, but we shouldn't be doing that job and not getting reimbursed because we only own half of it. And so in a sense, we're going to do an allocation to be able to show that. So we spend a lot of time, all three of us there, not there at the airport, but working on the airport projects. And so here we have to, if we zero it out because we're all doing it, then we're not getting reimbursed for it.
You're saying because there's nowhere where it can reflect the administrative
Right.
cost that we actually expense for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we actually probably spend more than what we budgeted on there as far as that position.
Timing.
Okay. And then I know Mr. Molina had mentioned this in reference to multi-use, just kind of revisiting what they're doing there and having, I think you said Mrs. Medrano was going to visit with them and look at that information and ask for financials just on the revenues, because I know the water park was something that we had positive revenue from, so and kind of addressing the hours of operation, how is that working, and just to maximize or minimize our liability or the funds that we have to have. And of course, we want to protect it because it is a city-owned property, just like our golf course and all the other facilities that we want to make sure we take care of. The other thing on the golf course, we were presented with a budget. I want to see if we can reevaluate that. I'm not sure if that was just an estimate because we've never had the snack bar revenues or inventory. I just thought that was a little high, but.
It's an estimate.
Yeah,
They
so
really
just if.
Better numbers, okay.
Yeah.
I think that was, but it only came out to $10,000 in inventory.
It was
a month.
180,000.
Was it 180 or 140?
180,000.
For the year.
For
For
the
what?
snack bar for the year.
For the year,
yes.
right.
Oh, I thought it was 100. No, 140 was the transfers.
So like gross revenue.
I'm sorry?
Was that revenue? You're talking about revenue?
Are you talking, you're
No,
talking
she's talking about
about
The
expense.
inventory,
expenses?
yes.
Yeah.
The expense. And we talked about that sheet to just make it a little clearer for us.
Sorry, but real quick while you look at that.
Uh-huh.
We have it labeled as a snack bar, but it's not really a snack bar, right? We're going full kitchen.
Right, yeah, it was
So
just
that
us
makes
talking
a
about
big
it.
difference.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. So
Yeah.
yeah, labeling it as a
Snacks.
snack bar makes it sound like we have
Okay.
vending
Yeah,
machines,
it's
but
also-
as
We could
a
change it.
restaurant, as a full kitchen, 180 actually seems short when you look at it that way.
Right.
Yeah, when
Okay.
it's snack bar, I was picturing that we're gonna have,
No.
just.
No, it's a full
Just
kitchen, which
chips,
we made
like
it a
little
line item. We'll
small-
change it. We'll change it.
Like really
We'll change it.
simple.
Okay.
I thought like maybe
Semantics.
sandwiches and.
Yeah,
So-
Right.
Okay.
Change.
Well, even just a better breakdown, just something that we can see and visualize and, okay. The other thing I wanted, just to, if we can have a better clarification on the ARPA funds, how they're gonna be utilized. I know council have voted to do the revenue loss and the infrastructure. Just to remind us like what that allocation is. I know I tried to go back to the meeting and kind of hear that, and then I saw 1.6 million for infrastructure, the balance to revenue loss. So I wasn't sure. I wanted just to see that. And y'all already answered the other stuff, some of the other things, so. Okay, everything else was answered. Thank you so much. Hey, council, any other comments or questions or anything? Okay. Well, if that's it, Then I guess we go to the next.
Yeah, when do we foresee the next? I know that you'll have some work to do. We're not saying, we expect another one on Tuesday and then Thursday.
29th, right?
When do we have a scheduled meeting, Odie?
The 29th?
The 29th? Okay,
And then September to,
yeah, 29th.
August
29th and the
29th. Okay.
What time on the 20th?
10th.
10 a.m. That's it, sit and receive the stuff and ship it.
Yeah, we
Yes, he
should.
already gave us preliminary,
Preliminary.
we're still, we should have them. We need to schedule
Well, then,
yes,
if no other discussion or questions or comments, I'll move on to agenda item number 5, adjournment.
Motion adjourned.
Okay.
All right, so what do we got?
Have a first and a second.
What do we change it?
Mr. Molina and then
Stole my thunder.
So she didn't count.
Okay. So all in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. All opposing, meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you, staff. Thank you. Director. Mr. Esparza.